So here I am at Forest Place in Dayton, Ohio, and spring has come and all the flowers are blooming. He got this chair which converts into a picnic table.
The video?
Yeah. Hey Forrest. When are we going?
As soon as I make this phone call.
Okay, so we'll make it...
Get the car turned around, we're ready to go.
Alright, sounds good.
I want to stop at AutoZone.
AutoZone first?
Yeah.
Then we go on 75, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, grab the GPS out of the truck too. The whole thing, you know,
The whole mount?
everything, yeah.
Alright.
For every tribe and tongue and people in the nation, we can hardly conceive of the limitless, boundless love, but we can rejoice in the truth of John 3:16. Everyone who believes in Jesus will not perish, but have everlasting life. A.W. Tozer said this, I thought it would be good to quote. God's love is measureless, it's more, it's boundless. It has no bounds because it's not a thing, but a facet of the essential nature of God. His love is something He is, and because He is infinite, that love can enfold the whole created world in itself and have room for 10,000 times 10,000 worlds besides. And then there's the story of Paul, and he's changed from Saul to Paul. He knows a lot about God's abundant love and grace. He experienced it. Remember his story in Acts 8? It tells about Saul. At that time, he was ravaging the church and entering house after house, dragging men and women off and committing them to prison. Saul held the coats, if you remember, for the people who killed Stephen. In 1 Timothy 1, he admits to having been a person who blasphemed and persecuted and was shamefully and outrageously aggressive to insulting Jesus. Now, I think if I would have been Saul or Paul at that time, I'd have said, and realized what I was doing, I'd have said, this is too much. I couldn't ever be accepted by God. I'd be embarrassed. But Paul said he obtained mercy. The grace of Jesus flowed out superabundantly and beyond measure for him, accompanied by faith and love that are realized in Jesus. Paul experienced a lot of love and grace. You know, these words are good and they're meaningful, but I can't really see anything when I just see the words. It's a good concept, but I think if we take a few moments to reflect on how big God really is and how wonderful He is, we can do that by looking at some of His creation. It shows, God's creation shows how big and how powerful and how creative He is. And He doesn't do things to just get by. He doesn't have a budget. He has an unlimited budget. When you see His creation, you can understand a little bit better what He can do for you personally. God does things in a big way.
Amen.
He doesn't fool around. You can get an idea of how big His love is and grace are capable of being by looking at some of the nature. And one of the things that we all look at and we all use every day is food. It's a good example. My sister, now her son is with me. I've got to be careful what I say. But she's always telling me, raw food is the best food. You can only eat raw food because it's got the most nutrients in it. But most of us, most of the world probably eats cooked food. And there's still enough nutrients in that cooked food. You can throw half of them away and you still have enough to live. It's just amazing. I did go through the CHIP program and that kind of brought back to my mind that whole foods and non-processed foods are a lot better because they have all the nutrients that God created in them. And one of the things that I learned in the CHIP program was about the mango. I'd never eaten a mango much. I hardly knew where it was in the store. But if you know Hans Neal, he likes mangoes. This is a good example of God's exuberant love and creative power that He has. An average mango tree blossoms, it has about 1 million blossoms. And out of those 1 million blossoms, it gets about 25,000 pieces of fruit. the quality doesn't diminish with time, or the amount that it makes. And those trees live for about 100 years. And so you get about a couple million pieces of fruit off that. In the tropics where they grow a lot, they're kind of known as the pantry. They have food. And it's got especially high in vitamin A, way more than what the daily recommended value is. You know, looking at the mango tree, it's just a little tiny picture of how big God is, how much He can make out of just a little seed, and it lasts for a long time, even on this earth. Another piece of food or fruit, there are apples. In the United States, there are 2,500 different varieties of apples. In the world, they say there's about 7,500 different varieties. Apples are grown in all 50 states. They're part of the rose family. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention, the mango tree is also part of the poison ivy family and the cashew family. I thought that was quite interesting. Apples harvested from an average tree can fill 20 42-pound boxes. And this is kind of an interesting facet. It takes about 50 leaves to make one apple. And apples are second only to oranges as the most valuable fruit in the United States. These are just two fruits. And of course, there's dozens and hundreds, probably thousands, if you counted vegetables and grains that we have. Of course, food is not the only place where God has shown His creativity. A few weeks back, you might remember, they made a service call to outer space, to the Hubble space station, or space telescope. It's been up there for 19 years so far, taking pictures. I guess there's two ways of looking at space. When you see all those stars, you realize how small you are. But also, you can also look at it and say how big God is and how much He's created, how vast the universe is. And so I downloaded a couple pictures I just thought I'd show you on the screen to see how it is possible that God is capable of giving us boundless love and abundant grace. If God can create this universe, He surely knows how to give us love and grace.